Welcome to Talent Bus, where I talk with SaaS companies on how they are doing their talent acquisition. Today, I have Aref joining from Jobylon. He's the CEO and founder over there. They've been building HR tech for more than 10 years. And today we are talking about how to build a culture and recruit people to that culture. And you guys have this nice thing called the happiness culture. And we could actually start from that. So what does happiness culture mean for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So happiness, I think I'll come to that a little bit later, how that word became a thing, and culture changes with people and over time. But for us, happiness culture really means like, how do you maximize people's potential? How do you create a culture where there is a high level of psychological safety, where people can say what they feel, what they think, and really promoting people to take initiative to get things done, fail along the way, which is completely okay and expected. So it's not really about walking around smiling and being happy, even though that's part of it, but it's really about how do I make sure that I have impact, that I feel that I'm relevant. That's what happiness culture is for us.
Okay, interesting. I've personally kind of realized the importance of culture. I would say a bit late on my career. Actually, I haven't been thinking about that one that much until the past few years. But nowadays, I kind of personally, at least, kind of notice the value of that one, and I feel like when you have a strong culture, it's easier to recruit people for your company. People stay within your company, and kind of when you have identified your culture, it is kind of easier to get culture fit people to join the company as well. But can you share a bit more about kind of your story on kind of how you ended up like focusing on culture that much, and what was the reason behind that one?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's the same thing for us. It was never the plan in that sense for me. I remember when we started, 11 years ago, we had a first workshop where we were going to together set our values. And I remember I felt like, this is, we don't have time to set values. We need to start selling. We need to start doing stuff. And today I'm very happy that we did. So the values we set back then are still the values we have today. So our values are passion for people, passion for product, passion for business. And, values in itself, I don't think mean so much. Everyone has values. No one has bad values. No one has be a mean person. Everyone has good, positive words as values. So I think it's more like, what do the values mean for us? How do we live our values? We constantly discuss our values. And from those values, a culture was created. So our history, we've been doing many different products. We have gone through many different failures. And what we learned over and over again is that products comes and goes. But what is the point of all of this, of spending so much time, of working so much hard, if we are not happy, if we're not doing something that has an impact, if we're not being developed? That's how slowly the happiness culture came into being, that, okay, that's the key thing. The journey and the people you're in it is the key objective. Everything else is just sub goals along that journey.
Exactly. I think values are interesting thing. I've been thinking a lot, like if you would go for whether it's a smaller company or bigger company, and then you would ask all the employees over there, like, can you write down the values that our company has? Like, how big portion of people could do that one? And I think the bigger the company, the harder the task most likely will be. But what would you say? Like, if I would do that one at Jobylon, go to everyone and ask them to write the values down, could everyone do that one?
Oh yeah, 200%, absolutely. I would be surprised / sad if no one knew it, or if one person didn't know it. I think I also come from. I worked at another company before with 2,000, or at my time it was like 1,500 employees, and culture and values were super strong there. Every single person around the globe knew the values, they knew the culture. The Wi-Fi password was the values wherever you went in 50 offices around the world. So obviously, a lot of this comes from learnings from previous experiences as well. But I think when you can keep the culture consistent and transparent in that sense, I think it's such a huge value and impact on that.
Yeah, totally agree on that one. And I think kind of culture is something that, of course, kind of the people you are bringing in, people are kind of building culture. And for some points, I think that you cannot lead the culture. You can lead it at the same time, but then at the same time, like people who are joining are kind of building culture. But can you share a bit more on kind of your best practices kind of as a leader? Like how you can ensure that the culture is going towards the right way?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think we are learning as we go along as well. We've doubled the size of the team in the past less than a year. So with that comes also new challenges and so on. I think it starts from the very beginning. We talk about our culture and our values from our job ad and in our interview process and during our onboarding. So there's a lot of kind of repetitive information in that sense. But there's a couple of things we do to ensure that the culture doesn't necessarily need to stay the same, because the culture, I feel, is a result of the people, but they should be based on the values and they should be going towards the right direction. So I think one thing we do, I think, is really important, and maybe a lot of companies do this, but make sure to have one-on-ones. Every single person that we sit down with them on a monthly basis with their manager, it's their forum, it's their time to really talk about things like, how are things going? One question we always ask: are you happy? Can you give me feedback? Because this is what I'm doing today is the first time for me as well. So being able to have that transparent culture and talking about these things, I think, is super key. Like, are you actually happy? And not everyone should be happy in Jobylon as well. And if you're not, how can we help you to find that then in, for example, somewhere else? And talking about leaving a company is not a strange thing. It happens every day. So that's part of another journey in that sense. So having that continuous dialogue. We also have once or twice a year, maybe we have longer like workshops together where we actually we break up the teams. We discuss maybe certain values and we talk about how do we live our values. So we say we have passion for people. What does that actually even mean? What are we doing so we can actually say that we do have passion for people? And that leads to certain initiatives that we are running today. Everything from, we have this thing called happiness tax. Everything we sell, a small percentage of that goes into like a fund. And then every Friday, anyone can pitch whatever they want, which is like passion for business. So they do their pitch, they do their whole presentation. And if 50% say yes, then we got to do it. So, for example, it's been everything from buying a coffee machine to a pinball game, donating to a good cause. But that's like one of our initiatives. And these things, they come up when you have these discussions continuously. So I think those are one of the ways to ensure that people are part of the culture and part of the values and contribute to that culture. So it's not something that someone is making up from a leadership team, for example, because that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. It was interesting what you said about kind of people leaving, because I think that is something that is happening in every company, and that is just the fact that people will leave at some point. And kind of I've been thinking about that one, and kind of an idea that I came up regarding that topic was kind of a thing called exit plan. I think most companies do some kind of exit plan when they hear that that person is leaving. Like, hey, let's do an exit plan. Like, hey, what you should be doing during your last months. I've been actually thinking, like, what would happen if you would create the exit plan the day that person starts in a company? And the more I think about this idea, the more I like about that one. For example, we've been discussing with one potential employee for us, and she is in our recruitment process right now, but we are already talking about the exit plan. So we are talking about where she wants to go next. She wants to be an entrepreneur next. So what does the exit plan look like? Okay, so we are going to plan from the beginning, like that person will stay with us for 3 years. Here are the things that we want to make sure that person learns, so they have all the right skills and things she might need for the next journey. So kind of planning that exit from the beginning, because it's fact everyone will leave at some point. So what do you think? What do you think about the idea?
I love that. Those are kind of the purposes of the one-on-ones we have, right? That trying to create this culture where people feel that it's okay to say that I want to be an entrepreneur or I'm thinking about leaving, because it is 100% okay. And in fact, trying to also help them there. And I think one of the best dialogues we've had, we have a number of people in our team today that at some point reached out and, like, I'm not super happy in the role I'm doing. I want to go this way. And then we figured out, oh, what you actually want to do, we actually need that in like 3 months. So let's build your career path towards that. And they have been promoted to other roles because of that. And others have actually left because we can't give you what you need, and of course you need to follow what you need to do. So I think that's a great idea because it creates a culture that it's 100% okay. I think it's way worse because people will always leave anyway. So it's way better to have a communication around that and make sure that we can maybe contribute to that if they're leaving, so they actually end up somewhere even better, perhaps with our help. So I love those type of ideas. I had another like crazy idea that everyone who wants to thinking about like I want to try something new, because you have a lot of young people joining companies like ourselves, to say like, you know what, you get up to 1 year leave, so you can try whatever you want, but you always have a guaranteed job back, for example. And like, what would happen if we would do that, for example? So these type of ideas that are a little bit challenging the status quo, I think that they are super exciting.
Yeah, yeah, love that idea as well. My co-founder Sara is saying quite often that kind of if the first time when you hear about person leaving your company is the moment when they're gonna resign, then you have done something wrong. And I kind of completely agree with that one. If that's the stage, then you haven't created a kind of safe culture where you can speak about things out loud.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah. We could go a bit deeper on the kind of culture and then kind of your employer branding and your recruitment. So maybe first start from the kind of employer branding perspective of things. You mentioned that on your job ads you are kind of sharing about your culture, your values. But can you share kind of exactly how you are doing that one, and what do you feel is the best way? Is it like to write down that, hey, here are our values, or share examples of those ones, or like what is the best way to communicate those ones in your employer branding and in your job ads?
Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, we're super lucky that we have a fantastic head of people and culture who actually was one of those persons who started as a customer success manager in Jobylon with a background in talent acquisition. And then, after a year, realized that I miss recruitment, I miss talent acquisition, was thinking about kind of joining, doing that somewhere else. And then we realized, but we need that, and took a talent acquisition role. And then through that went into a head of people and culture role. So I think having a person that genuinely cares about these things and spends time on it is key, and that results in many things. So yes, we do visualize and write our values in our job ads. We are rethinking and reworking our career page right now, which is today very, very simple. We've never had, unfortunately, the time to really spend time on that. So that's a big project right now. But we also we spent a lot of time. Fun story is that we took in a guy as a project kind of consultant who helped us do this really good employer branding video. And one of the themes of this video was that he interviewed maybe 15 of us and talking about happiness. What does happiness mean for you? Are you happy? Etc. Talk about the culture, which became this really good employer branding video we're using in our job ads and in promotions and so on. But a fun story there is that he came to me after that and said, "Hey man, I have to ask you something. We got to talk." I was like, "Okay, sure, of course." And he had been spending 2 days just interviewing people about happiness at Jobylon. So he ended up asking like, "How can I join this company? Because the only thing I'm hearing is how happy people are." And it ended up with us hiring him. So now he's in our team and doing content for the marketing team, for example, in terms of video, photography, content, etc. So I think we try and add it in different places. Everything from job ads, we have created a whole landing page when we do hire someone. We send that to them during the onboarding phase. We talk a lot about that during the interview process. So culture is a big part of our recruitment process. But we also validate. It's not only we run assessment tests based on personalities and logic scores. All of these things are various data points that helps us in our processes.
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear a bit more on the kind of validation part? Like what are, for example, tests that you are using? What kind of questions you are asking during the interview process to validate culture fit, and like how you are assessing that one? Like, are you giving some points, like from 1 to 5, is this person a culture fit, or from 1 to 5, does they share our value 1, 2, or 3?
We don't do that. So again, thanks to our head of people and culture, Karin, who runs these processes and have created a really good process. I think the point of the process is really how do we focus on potential rather than the CV or experiences. And we do a number of things. We obviously we have you start by sending in your application normally, or we promote also a lot of referrals internally, as well as obviously we work with sourcing. Uh, every candidate goes through an assessment test through Alva Labs, which we are super happy with. Which gives us a very different data point, not based on the experience, but based on the individual and the potential of that individual. But then we also obviously have, interviews. We do case interviews with every single position, various cases to understand how the person would act within that role. And I think culture is kind of a ongoing theme around the whole process from both sides. They are getting to know us, we're getting to know them, and it's really not about hiring someone that is like me. It's about hiring someone with a different perspective that can complement the culture and that can add something to that culture. So we try and avoid, would I want to drink a beer with this person, even though like that's so easy to do. So I think that's the changes that Karin has done in our talent acquisition process, to not be subjective in that sense, but to use assessment tests, to use case interviews and other data points to have as an objective process as possible, and make sure that culture is an ongoing theme throughout that process.
Yeah, exactly. Have you noticed kind of, if you think about kind of different sources for candidates, as you mentioned, that there are the job ads, you are doing outreach, there are the referrals, and I was saying like referrals, like if someone already works for the company and kind of knows the culture, and then they kind of know someone to refer to, most likely they somewhat might have a kind of better idea, like if this person would fit the culture or not. But have you kind of noticed, for example, some, let's say, challenges on some particular source regarding the culture, or like, hey, if we do recruitment through referrals, more likely it will be a better culture fit because someone kind of recommended that person?
Well, I think referrals generally across the board has a higher conversion and quality, not only because of culture, because the person knows the individual, they know what they've been working with them, usually depending on the level of referral. Obviously, the number of referrals are always way lower than the number of applications. But yes, referrals have always worked better. We recently rolled out a referral program where it's not only about the bonus, but we try and kind of you collect points along the way, so you are recognized by just sending in a referral. You get more points if your referral goes to an interview. You get more points if they are hired, and you can kind of accumulate these points and get a bonus or get an extra vacation day, so you can kind of play around with those things. And the referral program generally has worked really well, especially for our senior positions. We started hiring a CFO, and we had very, very high demands and requirements in terms of what we want this person to know, and it kind of felt like we wanted them to be a CFO, but also a CEO and have management consulting background as well as some accounting. It started to feel like impossible. Then literally within a week, through a referral, we found one person, and 2 weeks later we hired that person. And of course, that's a little bit lucky as well, thankfully. But the power of referrals are so big. So I think yes, referrals generally generates higher conversion on all aspects, not only culture but also experience and role fit and all of that.
Exactly. You mentioned there that kind of you rolled out kind of kind of new referral program. Did you have anything in place before that one, like some other kind of program, or was it more like people were just doing that one without any program, or what was the situation before this?
Yeah, it was more like naturally people were referring each other, which I think happens if you have a strong culture and if you're a small enough team, and that continued, of course, and that happens again. But then also we thought like, how do we boost this, and how do we also give back? Because if we do find a referral, the finder's fee of that for the individual can be quite high, but that's actually quite low for a company who would instead have to go to a staffing agency, for example, or find that individual in somewhere else. So we kind of more made it formal, because I think a referral culture needs to exist. You can't force a referral program just because you have points. Referrals are not going to come back to you. So we already had that, but then we on top of that made it into a program. And we just like we talk about sales result on a weekly and monthly basis, we talk about the referral leaderboard. So we lift up the people who are sending in the most amount of referrals or who are contributing to that. So to kind of keep that culture going and make sure that it's always top of mind for everyone in the company.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because we are kind of currently building something similar to ourselves, and I'm thinking like what kind of program would be the kind of best possible one, and kind of at the same time, kind of I like what you share over there, like different points. But what it sounds to me that it might be hard to kind of keep on track. Like, how do you collect all the data for like, hey, you get points from these, points from these, points from these, rather than hey, okay, here's a bonus for a sign up. So kind of how do you balance on that one? Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you have Jobylon. So,
Yeah.
so we use our own tool, and of course our referral feature in our platform. So you can easily send in recommendations through Jobylon, and then we have all the points basically being optimized in that sense. So it doesn't become an admin task, because if that is going to come, then obviously everything becomes way harder.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Great. Hey, then maybe kind of next, what I would like to hear a bit, you mentioned when we kind of prepare for this discussion was that you have somehow also kind of built your salary model around your culture. And I think that was super interesting. So can you share a bit more on that?
Yeah, so this is something that, again, our head of people and culture, our CFO, have been working quite a lot with. And it's actually yet to be rolled out, but we've been working with the team. So we basically gathered a focus group in the beginning, having one or two representatives from every team, to really together with them set up how our salary reviews should work. And I think it all started with, everyone wants to know, what do I need to do more or less of or different to have an impact on my salary? And having general yearly salary reviews can be quite subjective. And also no one really leaves those maybe talks with a high five, like you always want higher and then you always get lower, and then there's always a discussion. So we were kind of like, how do we create a very transparent model so everyone knows this is how it works? So initially, the first thing we did was that we set we talked about how do we define salaries when you join Jobylon. So that was easier. So we created a very clear matrix based on various functions and experience levels, and it's very clear for everyone. If we hire an engineer with 3 years of experience, they're going to end up in this span. So everyone knows that this is the way we set salaries. But the second part is, how do we develop the salaries? So we've always historically had a yearly salary review, but there hasn't been a structure kind of behind it. And this is not something we can take credit for. We've been very inspired by other companies and talk to them and listen to how they do. One of them being a company called Hedvig in Sweden that has a great actually webinar and talk only about this. So what we did was that, after many workshops and many discussions with the team, we've created a questionnaire based of various behaviors, and these behaviors, they are connected to our values. So, for example, passion for business is one of our values. Within that, you have certain behaviors. I contribute to XYZ, and these are the questions and the behaviors that the team have together created. So the idea is that for a yearly salary review, you assess yourself based on these behaviors. And it's a very honest exercise, and it's hard to not be honest, because you get a behavior, and then basically you say, I am a role model in this behavior. I can improve within this behavior, or I'm doing pretty well, or I don't remember exactly the options there. And that will give you an assessment, and then you would, for example, you would recheck or cross check that with one of your peers or your managers. So in essence, you're kind of setting your own salary review, you're scoring yourself, and that in itself will trickle down into the salary review. So if we have a certain pot that we can use for salary increases, how that pot is distributed will in essence be connected to these salary evaluations, which in itself is connected to the values which the employees are assessing themselves on. So I think it's never going to be perfect, but I think what we want to achieve here is to say that we are living our values. If we say that values are so important, then we need to be able to assess not only salary but many other things on those values. So it's going to be really exciting to roll that out, which we're going to do this year, to see how that works. And I think we're going to learn a lot and iterate and change. And I think that's part of the process as well.
Yeah, exactly. I like the idea, and kind of one thing that like I have struggled in the past, like when working for others, has been kind of the salaries. And I think the biggest challenge has been that kind of you are not knowing how your salary will be developing, what are the factors on that one. So kind of I don't like about the idea that once a year I have a salary negotiation where I need to be pushing like, hey, I need to earn more, and then the company is like, hey, no, you cannot earn more. But rather that kind of, I think the person should almost kind of know that, hey, when I'm going to that discussion, I already know that what is kind of expected from me for that moment, so I will get the raise. So for example, that has been something that we've been kind of building for our employees, kind of growth plan for each 6 months. Like, hey, here are the goals for the next 6 months. If we reach this level, you will get this kind of raise, and then we kind of track those things on our kind of monthly one-to-ones. So the person will kind of exactly know when they come to the salary discussion, they will already kind of know like, hey, whether they are going to get that raise or not, rather than it's about negotiating or stuff like that.
100% agree, and that's exactly what we wanted to avoid. That what the outcome is, so the talk is more a confirmation of what you should probably already know at that point, and it's super clear and transparent. I 100% agree with what you said.
Yeah, exactly. One of the kind of big growth bottlenecks for a lot of companies is kind of employee retention. Like, what do you think? Like, how does like focusing heavily on kind of building a strong culture is kind of affecting on the retention? I think there are some good things, but as you mentioned, like if there is super strong culture, it might also mean actually that someone might be unhappy, and then you kind of need to let them go. But like, what is your feeling on kind of culture and retention?
Yeah, I think overall they're very related. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's simple in a way. Like if you wake up on a Monday morning and if you want to go to work or go online if you're remote, and you want to meet your colleagues and work with them, and you feel you have impact and you're relevant, I think all of those things are culture for me. And if you feel that, you can do that for a long time. So I think culture definitely affects retention in that sense. And the clearer culture and values are from the beginning of the process in the recruitment, of course, the lower of the retention you will have. Putting it simple in that sense. And I think especially when times get tough, if it's a pandemic, if it's a war, if it's a recession, like I think like today's world, we're just embracing uncertainty. And I think I noticed that during COVID, when it hit the first time, how strong the culture was, how everyone had each other's back, how people would have online, coffees or lunches or you name it, like yoga sessions, etc. But I think the culture, so our main objective during that period was to not lose anyone and not have to let go of anyone. And it ended up with us hiring people during the pandemic. So I think when situations and times get tough, and maybe retention can go up, and it could be that the market gets tough or my personal situation gets tough. So I kind of think that I feel I need to leave. Then I think the culture is something that's the glue in a way, right? Because that situation might change, or you need to figure it out, or you need to talk about it with your manager or with your colleagues. So I think culture highly affects retention in that sense, because products and business and all of those things will come and go, but people and culture are kind of the constant in the journey.
Exactly. Great. Hey, a lot of good learnings here today, and I think from my point, like the main points were to kind of really focus on your culture, build your culture based on your values, and kind of when you are making decisions on your business, on your people, kind of if you really want to kind of ensure that culture and values are strong, you need to do those decisions based on those values and those cultures, because otherwise you really don't have that culture. So thank you so much, Aref, for joining. For our listeners, if you like the episode, feel free to share it on your social, and if you have any suggestions for next guest, shoot me a message, and have a great week, everyone. Bye bye.